The cage was too small for her. The metal bars pressed against her shoulders when she shifted, and the floor stank of rust and fear. The crowd outside jeered, faces pressed close to the reinforced glass. To them, she wasn't a girl. She wasn't even alive in the same way. She was a monster. Her green-gray skin shimmered faintly in the artificial light, her black hair matted from weeks of confinement. Wide eyes glowed in the shadows, too large, too alien, too wrong for the citizens of Orion Prime. The guards paraded her through the markets like a curiosity, a captured beast to be mocked and pitted. Children threw stones at the glass. Adults spat. And every whispered word was the same. Monster. She stopped flinching at the insults. But she never stopped trembling at the cold. Captain Elias Rourke hated this part of the station. He had walked battlefields, seen war at its ugliest, but nothing twisted his stomach more than the market rows, where suffering became spectacle. On leave between assignments, he had tried to avoid it, but the sound of laughter had drawn him in. Laughter mixed with sobs. That was when he saw her, huddled in the cage, her thin frame shaking. She wasn't snarling or lashing out. She wasn't even fighting. She was just there, silent, resigned. "What's this one?" Elias asked a nearby merchant. The man grinned, teeth yellow. "Caught in the lower forests of Delcash 4. Savage little freak, isn't she? Dangerous, they say. Better in a cage than running free." Elias frowned. "She doesn't look dangerous. She looks like a child." The merchant barked a laugh. "Child? That thing? Look at those eyes. Look at the skin. She's not one of us, soldier. She's it." Elias didn't reply. He just watched the girl. She met his gaze for a flicker of a second before looking away, ashamed, as if she had been caught hoping too much. Something inside Elias twisted. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing those eyes, hollow and wide, and the way she shrank into herself when the crowd grew loud. The next morning, he returned. The guards barely noticed him slip past. He wasn't there to start trouble. He was there because he couldn't stand not being there. The girl was curled in the corner of her cage, shivering. He realized she didn't even have clothing beyond a ragged strip of cloth. Without a word, Elias slipped off his field cloak, the heavy, weatherproof kind he always carried. He undid the clasp and crouched near the bars. The girl froze, staring. Slowly, carefully, he pushed the blanket through the gap in the cage. No speeches. No explanations. Just a simple gesture. Her hands trembled as she reached out, dragging the fabric toward her. For a long moment, she clutched it to her chest as though it were treasure. Then, timidly, she wrapped herself in it, curling into its warmth. She didn't say anything. Neither did he. For the first time in months, she slept without shaking. Word spread quickly. The soldier gave the monster a gift, some sneered. Soft-hearted fool. Others whispered it differently. He treated her like a person. Elias didn't care what they said. He returned every day, sometimes with food, sometimes just to sit outside the cage. He spoke little, but when he did, it was gentle. His name, small stories of worlds she'd never seen, words that had no barbs. She listened. Slowly, cautiously, she began to respond. Her voice was soft, raw from disuse. "My name is Kaylin." It was the first time she had told anyone. One evening, the market boiled with noise. A group of men had gathered, louder than usual, jeering at her. "Show us the monster's teeth," one shouted, slamming the cage. "Snarl for us." Kaylin shrank back, arms tight around the cloak. Elias was there in moments, his hand gripping the ringleader's wrist before it struck the bars again. His voice was low, but it carried weight. "Enough. The man sneered. What's it to you, soldier? She's just a... Elias's glare cut him off. She's not your toy. The guards moved to intervene, but one look at Elias's insignia, the mark of a decorated captain, made them hesitate. That night, when the crowd dispersed, Kalen whispered, Why do you care? Elias sat down outside the bars. He thought of the war, of the orphans left behind, of the faces of children labeled collateral. Because you deserve better, he said simply. Days bled into weeks. Kalen grew stronger, though she never left the cage. She told Elias pieces of her story in fragments, a village burned by poachers, her people scattered, herself captured when she refused to run. They called us monsters, she murmured once, because we look different. But my mother used to say, monsters are only real if you believe lies about them. Elias clenched his fists. He wanted to tear the cage apart, to march her out under the open stars. But protocol bound him. She wasn't technically military jurisdiction. She was property of the markets. Yet every day he came back. Every day he sat with her. Every day he reminded her without words that she wasn't alone. Then came the riots. Tensions had been boiling on Orion Prime. Trade disputes, shortages, protests. One night, it exploded. Fires spread across the market rows. Merchants fled. Civilians screamed. Elias ran toward the chaos. The cages. He had to reach the cages. Smoke burned his lungs as he forced his way through the panicked crowd. The rows were collapsing, flames licking at the wooden stalls. And there, in the center, Kalen's cage stood, half covered in falling debris. She was inside, crying out. Fear. Not for herself, but for the cloak she clutched tight, the last piece of kindness she had. Elias drew his sidearm and shot the lock. The door crashed open. Kalen froze, staring at him through the smoke. Come on, he shouted, holding out his hand. For the first time, she stepped beyond the bars. Her small fingers slipped into his, fragile but real. Together, they ran. After the fires were contained, the market rows lay in ruin. Many cages had burned. Many creatures perished. But Kalen lived. When officials demanded explanations, Elias stood firm. She's under my protection now. She's no monster. She's a survivor. Some argued. Some scoffed. But no one challenged the captain who had dragged civilians from flames with a child clinging to his side. Weeks later, on a quiet observation deck of a distant station, Kalen pressed her forehead to the glass, staring at the endless stars. The cloak still wrapped around her shoulders, though it was patched and worn. Do you think they'll still call me a monster? She asked softly. Elias looked at her. Maybe. Some people always need someone to hate. She turned to him, fear flickering in her eyes. Then what am I? He didn't answer with words. He just placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Sometimes silence carried more truth than speeches. Kalen blinked back tears. For the first time since her capture, she let herself believe the words her mother had told her. Monsters are only real if you believe lies about them. And this human beside her? He didn't believe the lie. In the galaxy's records, she would remain an anomaly. A monster in the eyes of many. A curiosity to others. But to one human, she was something else entirely. A girl worth saving. A soul worth protecting. And a reminder that sometimes the most powerful act of defiance was as simple as putting a blanket on someone and saying nothing at all.